Hey, everybody, and welcome to our weekly office hours. These are kind of mini webinars where we're giving you bite-sized ideas about practical areas where you can apply Noodle Factory specifically, but generative AI more broadly in your teaching practice. Now, this week, as you probably saw, and the reason that you're here is something that we're going to talk about that is very common. I have experienced it myself. You probably have as well. It's more common with older students. Certainly, the teaching that I do is primarily with adult learners, and I see this all the time. Let me frame this as a scenario that you've probably all experienced. Imagine it's 10:30, maybe 11 o'clock at night, maybe even midnight. A student is working on something that's due tomorrow. It might be an assignment or a project, and they're stuck. It's not really a big deal, but they can't move forward without getting clarification on whatever it is that they're stuck on. They check the course page, they look at the slides, they look at their notes, and something still isn't clicking. It's still not clear. Maybe they reach out to peers, do something like that. Maybe they go to a general purpose generative AI tool. But if they can't get a good answer, they either give up and then they submit something or participate in something that they know is maybe wrong, or they find something from a general purpose tool that may or may not be accurate because this could be something that's really centered on what you're teaching. Or, and here's what's very common, they email you or they WhatsApp you and you don't see it until you wake up the next day. Maybe it's 7 a.m., you're up, you're checking your messages, and it's too late. So all this student needed was about 90 seconds of the right guidance, not a whole lecture, not reteaching a topic or correcting an entire misconception, just a little bit of help. Not complete office hours, but just somebody to explain it clearly and once. And that's what we're going to look at today. What does that actually look like in practice if we're able to take this and use generative AI in this very, very particular way? So I am in the Noodle Factory platform right now. This is actually a topic that I teach on business value discovery. It's typically taught at the university level, at the polytechnic level. I teach it for adult learners practicing pre-sales engineers. This is what a student might see in this course, the supplement to what's happening in the face-to-face classroom-based course. This particular AI tutor was built from a real set of course materials. The slides, the lecture notes, transcripts of me delivering this course. The student doesn't really need to know all of that. They just need to ask some questions. So I'm going to just go into this course. This is called Business Value Discovery. I'm just going to click through into the course. And you can see here that it shows me where I am in the course itself. But let's say we'll just go into this general part of the course. And I want to continue my learning. And so Walter, that's the name of the tutor, is welcoming me back. Shall we pick up where we left off? And I'm just going to go ahead and pose my question. I've got a dilemma that I've got. Now, there's a concept in this course that's very specific to the course. It probably isn't available out in the public domain. It's something that is really very specific to this course. And I might say, I need some help. I forgot what the concept of 3W plus M means in business value discovery. Now, I know what that is because I teach it, but let's see if Walter is able to help me get this right. So we'll let Walter go and engage with the curriculum. So what's actually being used to teach the course. So in this case, it's intentionally isolated. It's not going out to the wider world. But you can see here, it has found that, oh, okay, well, this means the 3 wonderful measures plus mission. Exactly right. Good job, Walter. It's a very simple framework in this course that helps these students who tend to come from more technical backgrounds, who are trying to understand business and how to work with business customers, this simple framework. What does every customer want in terms of business value when they're applying technical solutions to try to improve business value? Well, they want to increase revenue. decrease costs, mitigate risk. Those are the three wonderful measures, and they need to satisfy their mission. And you can see here, this is a summary table that comes directly from a workbook that's a part of the course. And yeah, so that's great. So I get that question answered. Let me try something else. So how would I apply this in a first customer conversation where I'm trying to understand what the customer's aims are? So more of an application question. So maybe that's a part of the assignment or the project or what I'm working on, what I'm stuck on. I guess the point is that really, like I would do with my instructor, with a subject matter expert, somebody who really knows this material, who's teaching this material, I'm getting that sort of one-to-one engagement, even though it might be at 10:30 p.m., 11 p.m., midnight, what have you. So what you're getting here, and I think what's important to understand, is this is how I would frame it, right? So largely because it's coming from both the course materials, but also the transcript, in this case, of how I have taught this course hundreds of times, you're getting it as I would frame it in the classroom if a student asked this in the classroom. Very different from the way that something like ChatGPT might answer the same question. You'd get maybe an accurate but a generic answer. So because this concept of business value discovery is out there in the public domain, there's a chance that it might give you the right guidance, the right direction, but it wouldn't be exactly like I would have framed it in my course. And so, the other thing that you get is it follows the conversation. So it remembers what I just asked. It's not starting from scratch. And if I look over here at the insights, I can see how I'm progressing. All of this adds to the progression that I'm making in these courses. So let me just go back in, and I'll show you something else in terms of how we might get started on this topic. So let's say I did get my question answered, and I'll go over here into a different topic. This is around pain points. So there are, in business value discovery, 3 different types of pain points that we teach and we practice. And I might say, I don't get it. Where would these show up in a real scenario? And I'll add, well, I wouldn't even say in business value discovery, but just where would these show up in a real scenario? And what's important is that Walter's going to stay within the course, not going to go off syllabus, because it really only knows, intentionally so, what the educator has put in. So that's intentional. It's not a limitation. It's a design choice that we've made in the platform. The educator defines those boundaries. And so these examples are going to come from the specific course materials. So these are examples that are in the course materials. Now, Walter can make some inferences. That's something that, as the owner of this course, if you will, of the approach that we're taking in this course, I can make those choices. This is what you're seeing here is a demonstration of what we call a PEBBLE. It's an acronym that stands for a pedagogically bounded learning environment. The bounding is the content itself. The other thing that you get when you're using a PEBBLE like this is visibility. So every conversation is logged. It's not meant to be a surveillance environment, but overnight, as an example, you get to see what topics came up most, where students are getting stuck. You didn't have to be awake for any of that, answering WhatsApp, but you know exactly what was going on. So if there is a misconception about, let's say our previous question on the 3 wonderful measures plus mission, if there's a distinct misconception around that, and if a lot of students are asking the same question, that's something that I can bring back into the classroom. Now, if you're wondering how this gets built, basically all I did, and I'll just flash over here to the admin panel, I just uploaded a bunch of documents. I mean, all I had to do was drag in documents, point to specific websites, but in my case, I just used documents. If I were integrated into a learning management system, I could point to the locations in the learning management system. So what's actually changed for the student in this midnight scenario where they get an answer? Well, that's it. They got their answer quickly, believably. It's a real one. It's grounded in the course materials, and they got it in about 90 seconds. And they moved forward. Their assignment's better. They didn't have to email you at midnight. And for you, you didn't have to give up your evening or your early morning, as the case may be. You also didn't leave a student stuck. You made a decision, potentially months ago, to go ahead and set this up inside of this bounded learning environment, Noodle Factory, and it runs from there. So it's not about replacing certainly what goes on in the classroom. It's certainly not about replacing office hours either. It's really about personalizing the teaching in a different way, extending the reach that you have with students. I'll give you a very quick example of this. We work with a business school professor who's a subject matter expert in a very narrow part of finance. And this was her vision when we started working with her. She said, I've written books on this subject, dozens of articles, I've got hundreds of hours of video of myself talking about this very narrow subject. I'm a subject matter expert. She didn't say this, but I would say she's a subject matter expert in this topic. And I would love it if my students, and in her class, there are usually hundreds of students in the class, I would love it if they could have almost like unlimited office hours with me, not to replace office hours or classroom time, but to really extend and augment those office hours. And that's what we've been able to do using this simple approach. So hopefully that gives you some ideas on how you might apply this in your own practice. We do have a couple of things that are going to be coming your way. If you registered for this webinar, this week's freebie, if you will, our downloadable is an AI-ready content checklist. So just like you saw what I was doing with the drag and drop of content into this course, this will just give you a sense of how and where you can take content that you've already got and bring that into a tool like Noodle Factory in order to take advantage of all that work that you've done on your course material. It works with Walter, as you saw today, and it works with any other AI tool. So that'll be coming in your email soon. If for some reason you didn't register for this webinar, we'll direct you over to the website. In fact, you can just go to noodlefactory.ai and you can scan the QR code there and grab that information. If you want to try any of the things that I was doing today, again, just go to noodlefactory.ai. You can start a free trial if you don't already have an account. You can get a working tutor set up before your next lecture. It really just takes about 10 minutes, 15 minutes to get up and running. So give that a try. Now, next week in our office hours, we're going to talk about something a little uncomfortable. Your students are already using AI, depending on which research you look at. In Singapore, as an example, about 90%, upwards of 90% of students are using AI in some way, and whether we've sanctioned that or not. So most educators are in a position where they're just reacting to that. Next week, we're going to talk about how you get ahead of that. So how do you become much more AI conscious in what you're doing in big and small ways in your class with your students, and especially around the assignments, the assessments, and the projects that you're giving out. So with that, we'll see you next week. Thanks, everybody.